Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery and watched the stars shift around them as they dropped out of quantum tunnel drive. 3 months had passed since they left Earth's solar system, and Jake felt excited about what they might find in this new part of space. The Discovery was humanity's first ship built for deep space exploration, and Jake was proud to command her crew of 200 brave souls who had volunteered for this mission into the unknown. Dr. Lisa Carter looked up from her science station with wide eyes. She had been studying the sensor readings for the past hour, and what she found made her heart race with both excitement and worry. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures ahead. These readings are unlike anything we've ever seen before. The power levels suggest technology far beyond our current capabilities." Commander Ryan Brooks checked his tactical displays and frowned. His job was to keep the ship safe, and these unknown energy readings made him nervous. "Sir, I'm detecting at least 12 large vessels in formation. Their configuration doesn't match any known human designs. I recommend we proceed with extreme caution." Amy Torres called out from the engineering station where she monitored the ship's systems. "Captain, our quantum drives are operating normally, but I'm picking up some kind of interference. Whatever is out there has technology that's affecting our sensors in ways I don't understand." Jake made his decision quickly. They had come this far to make contact with alien life, and now they had found it. "I'll stop. Maintain current position, but keep engines ready for immediate departure if necessary. Lisa, can you determine if those ships have detected us?" Before Dr. Carter could answer, the main screen flickered and displayed an image that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. A tall figure appeared before them, standing at least 8 feet in height with features that seemed to be made from living crystal. The being's skin had a translucent quality that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. Its eyes glowed with soft blue light, and when it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Greetings, beings of the vessel Discovery. I am High Counselor Vexathera of the Zephyrian Collective. We have been observing your approach and welcome you to this sector of space. Please do not be alarmed by our presence. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly relations with your species." Jake stepped forward and tried to hide his amazement at this historic moment. Humanity had dreamed of this day for centuries, and now it was happening during his watch. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Discovery. We represent humanity and we're honored to make contact with your people. We also come in peace and hope we can learn from each other." High Counselor Vexathara smiled in a way that seemed both warm and somehow calculating. "Excellent, Captain Morrison. We have much to discuss regarding your species' future in this galaxy. However, such important conversations should take place in proper surroundings. We invite you and a small delegation to visit our flagship where we can speak more comfortably about matters of mutual interest." Dr. Carter whispered to Jake from behind her station. "Captain, I'm detecting some unusual energy patterns from their ships. There's something about their technology that doesn't quite add up with what they're showing us." Jake nodded slightly to acknowledge her warning, but maintained his diplomatic composure. "We would be honored to visit your ship, High Counselor. I'll bring my senior officers and our science team. When would be convenient for this meeting?" "Immediately would be most appropriate, Captain Morrison. Time is a precious resource, and there are important matters we must address without delay. We will transport you directly to our vessel using our matter transmission technology. Please gather your delegation at your ship's main cargo bay in 10 minutes. The transmission ended, and Jake turned to his crew. His mind raced with possibilities and concerns. This was exactly what they had hoped for, but something about the High Counselor's tone made him uneasy. "Lisa, Ryan, Amy, you're with me. Lisa, bring your portable sensors and recording equipment. Ryan, keep your sidearm but don't make it obvious. Amy, I want you to observe their technology and systems as much as possible." Dr. Carter gathered her equipment while reviewing the sensor data one more time. The more she studied the Zephyrian ships, the more questions she had. Their technology seemed incredibly advanced, but there were patterns in the energy signatures that suggested something she couldn't quite identify yet. Commander Brooks checked his weapon and made sure his tactical scanner was working properly. Years of military training had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now those instincts were telling him to be very careful around these aliens. Amy Torres downloaded the latest sensor readings to her portable computer. As an engineer, she was fascinated by the glimpses of Zephyrian technology they had detected. The power systems alone were beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of building. The four humans made their way to the cargo bay where they waited for the promised transportation. Jake looked at his crew and felt proud of their courage in this historic moment. Whatever happened next would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. A soft blue light filled the cargo bay and Jake felt a strange tingling sensation pass through his body. The familiar walls of the Discovery faded away and were replaced by a vast chamber made from the same crystal-like material as High Counselor Vexithara's skin. The ceiling stretched high above them and seemed to pulse with inner light. High Counselor Vexithara stood waiting for them, surrounded by several other Zephyrians who observed the humans with curious eyes. "Welcome aboard the Harmony's Voice, Captain Morrison. You are now witnessing technology that has brought peace and prosperity to 47 different species across this sector of the galaxy." Jake looked around the impressive chamber and tried to process what he was seeing. The technology was beautiful, but there was something about the way the High Counselor spoke about peace that made him wonder what that word really meant to these aliens. "High Counselor, we're grateful for this opportunity to learn about your civilization. Humanity has always sought knowledge and friendship among the stars. We hope this meeting will benefit both our species." Vexithara's glowing eyes seemed to study Jake with intense interest. "Indeed, Captain Morrison. This meeting will definitely benefit both our species, though perhaps not in the way you currently imagine. Come, let us discuss your species' future in greater detail." High Counselor Vexithara led the human delegation through corridors that seemed to flow like liquid crystal around them. Jake Morrison and his team followed their alien host deeper into the massive ship while trying to absorb everything they saw. The walls displayed moving images of beautiful worlds and peaceful scenes that supposedly showed the benefits of joining the Zephyrian collective. "Your species shows great promise, Captain Morrison," Vexithara said as they walked. "However, like all young civilizations, humanity requires proper guidance to reach its full potential. This is where the collective's wisdom becomes invaluable." Dr. Lisa Carter discreetly scanned the walls with her portable sensor while pretending to admire the displays. The readings she was getting didn't match what her eyes were seeing. There seemed to be some kind of projection or illusion technology at work here. She made mental notes to analyze the data more carefully later. They entered a vast chamber that Vexithara called the Hall of Harmony. Holographic displays showed star maps covering thousands of light years, and Jake could see dozens of different worlds marked with Zephyrian symbols. The scale of their civilization was breathtaking and somewhat intimidating. "Behold the extent of collective space, Captain Morrison. 47 species live in perfect harmony under our guidance. War, conflict, and suffering have been eliminated from all these worlds through our proven methods of peaceful cooperation." Commander Ryan Brooks studied the star maps with his military eye and noticed something troubling. The expansion pattern showed steady growth over 2,000 years with no gaps or setbacks. In his experience, no civilization expanded that smoothly, without using overwhelming force to crush resistance. Amy Torres was fascinated by the technology around them, but also confused by some of the things she observed. The Zephyrian systems were incredibly advanced, yet they seemed designed for very specific purposes. There was no evidence of innovation or adaptation in their designs. Everything looked like it had been built the same way for centuries. Vexithara gestured toward a comfortable seating area made from the same flowing crystal material. "Please sit and allow me to explain how your species can benefit from joining our great community. The process is simple and has proven successful with every species we have encountered." Jake sat down carefully on the crystal chair, which molded itself to fit his body perfectly. The sensation was both comfortable and unsettling. "We're interested in learning about your civilization, High Counselor. However, humanity values its independence, and we would need to understand exactly what joining your collective would involve." "An excellent question, Captain Morrison. The Harmony Protocol is designed to eliminate the sources of conflict that plague young civilizations. First, all military technologies and weapons are surrendered to collective oversight. This removes the temptation for aggressive actions that could destabilize the peace we have worked so hard to achieve. Dr. Carter looked up from her sensor readings with poorly concealed alarm. The data she was collecting painted a very different picture than what Vexithara was describing. High Counselor, could you tell us more about how species maintain their cultural identity within the collective? Vexithara's glowing eyes focused on Lisa with what might have been amusement. Cultural preservation is naturally important, Dr. Carter. However, many primitive customs and beliefs must be abandoned when they conflict with the greater harmony. The collective's guidance helps species evolve beyond their destructive impulses. Commander Brooks decided to ask a more direct question. What happens to species that choose not to join your collective? Are they free to maintain their independence? For the first time since the meeting began, High Counselor Vexithara's serene expression showed a hint of something darker. That is a difficult question, Commander Brooks. In 2,000 years, we have only encountered 3 species that initially refused our offer of membership. Unfortunately, their aggressive tendencies eventually forced us to intervene for the protection of peaceful civilizations in the region. Amy Torres felt a chill run down her spine at the way Vexithara said the word, intervene. She had spent enough time around military personnel to recognize euphemisms for violence when she heard them. Jake tried to maintain diplomatic composure while processing the implications of what they were hearing. High Counselor, humanity appreciates your offer, but we would need time to consider such an important decision. This would require consultation with our leaders on Earth. Of course, Captain Morrison. We understand the magnitude of this decision. However, time is unfortunately limited. Our long experience has shown that extended deliberation often leads to unfortunate complications. We can allow your species 7 standard days to reach a decision. Dr. Carter's sensor readings were now showing alarming energy buildup in the ship's systems around them. Whatever technology the Zephyrians were using, it was far more powerful than anything humanity possessed. She caught Jake's eye and gave him a subtle warning signal. 7 days seems reasonable, Jake said while trying to think of a way to end this meeting quickly. We should return to our ship to begin consultations with Earth immediately. Vexithara stood gracefully and smiled in that unsettling way. Excellent. However, before you leave, there is one more thing you should understand about the collective's methods. We have found that visual demonstrations are often more effective than lengthy explanations. The crystal walls around them suddenly displayed new images that made the human delegation freeze in horror. They showed worlds burning, cities destroyed, and populations fleeing in terror. But these weren't scenes of war between equals. They showed advanced technology systematically destroying primitive civilizations that had no chance of defending themselves. These are historical records of our 3 unsuccessful negotiations, Captain Morrison. The Kethmori, the Valdris, and the Thane Confederacy all chose to reject our offer of membership. As you can see, their aggressive nature eventually required correction for the greater good of galactic peace. Jake felt sick as he watched entire civilizations being wiped out by weapons that seemed godlike in their destructive power. The images showed no mercy for civilians, no attempts at limited warfare, just total annihilation of anything that resisted Zephyrian rule. I trust this clarifies the importance of making the correct decision, Captain Morrison. The collective takes no pleasure in such interventions, but sometimes peace can only be achieved through decisive action against those who threaten it. Commander Brooks was calculating tactical assessments in his mind and coming up with terrifying conclusions. The weapons shown in these recordings were beyond anything in humanity's arsenal. Earth's defenses would last perhaps hours against this kind of technology. Amy Torres was studying the technical aspects of the destruction and realized something important. The Zephyrian weapons were incredibly powerful, but they seemed designed for overwhelming less advanced civilizations. There might be weaknesses that could be exploited if someone was clever enough to find them. Dr. Carter was analyzing the energy patterns in her sensor data and beginning to understand how the Zephyrian systems worked. Their technology was advanced, but it was also rigid and predictable. They had clearly been using the same methods for centuries, without innovation or adaptation. We understand your position, High Counselor, Jake said with forced calm. Humanity will give your offer the serious consideration it deserves. May we return to our ship now to begin our deliberations? Of course, Captain Morrison. Remember, 7 days, choose wisely. The blue light surrounded them again, and they found themselves back in the Discovery's cargo bay. For several moments, none of them spoke as they processed what they had just experienced. Finally, Jake broke the silence. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Lisa, I want everything you recorded analyzed immediately. Ryan, begin tactical assessments of their capabilities. Amy, start working on countermeasures for their technology. We have 7 days to figure out how to save humanity. The Discovery's bridge hummed with urgent activity as Jake Morrison coordinated humanity's response to the Zephyrian ultimatum. Dr. Lisa Carter worked frantically at her science station, analyzing every piece of data they had collected from their visit to the alien flagship. Commander Ryan Brooks reviewed tactical information while Amy Torres studied the technical specifications of Zephyrian technology. Captain, I've completed my analysis of their energy signatures, Dr. Carter reported. The Zephyrians have incredibly powerful weapons, but their technology appears to be specialized for specific types of targets. Their systems seem designed to overwhelm energy-based defenses and exploit predictable tactical responses. Jake studied the data on his command screen while formulating plans. What does that mean for our defenses, Lisa? Can we find weaknesses in their approach? Possibly, sir. Their weapons are optimized for destroying advanced energy shields and sophisticated military systems. However, they might be less effective against simpler, more primitive approaches. The Zephyrians seem to have grown accustomed to fighting enemies who use technology similar to their own. Commander Brooks looked up from his tactical analysis with grim determination. Captain, I've been studying those historical records they showed us. Every species they destroyed used conventional military tactics and advanced energy weapons. None of them tried asymmetric warfare or unconventional approaches. Amy Torres had been working on understanding Zephyrian systems architecture, and she had made an important discovery. Sir, their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also highly specialized. Their ships are designed for overwhelming superiority against conventional threats. They might have vulnerabilities against attacks they haven't encountered before. Jake made his decision quickly. Prepare an encrypted transmission to Earth immediately. Include all our sensor data, tactical analysis, and recommendations. Earth needs to know what we're facing and what options might be available. The transmission to Earth took 18 hours to reach its destination due to the vast distances involved. During that time, the Discovery's crew worked around the clock to gather more intelligence about their alien visitors. Long-range sensors tracked the Zephyrian fleet as it maintained position near the edge of the solar system. On Earth, President Elena Rodriguez convened an emergency session of the Global Defense Council within hours of receiving Jake's transmission. The council chamber filled with the planet's top military leaders, scientists, and diplomats as they reviewed the terrifying information from deep space. General Nathan Price studied the tactical data with growing concern. The energy output from their weapons is beyond anything we can currently defend against. Our most powerful shields would last seconds against their primary weapons. Conventional military engagement would be suicide. Ambassador Claire Watson argued for diplomatic solutions despite the grim evidence. Perhaps we can negotiate some kind of compromise. There might be aspects of their offer that we can accept while maintaining some degree of independence. Dr. Carter's transmitted analysis provided some hope among the dire assessments. According to the Discovery's science officer, the Zephyrians have grown complacent after centuries of easy victories. Their tactics are predictable, and their technology is optimized for specific types of conflicts. If we can avoid fighting them the way they expect, we might have a chance. President Rodriguez listened to all the arguments before making her decision. We cannot surrender humanity's freedom regardless of the consequences. Begin immediate preparations for unconventional defense strategies. If we're going to fight, we'll do it on our terms using methods they won't expect. The next 6 days saw frantic preparation across Earth's military establishments. Scientists worked to develop countermeasures against Zephyrian technology while military planners devised tactics that avoided conventional space combat. Manufacturing facilities began producing weapons and defensive systems based on principles the aliens might not anticipate. Meanwhile, Aboard the Discovery, Jake Morrison maintained constant communication with the Zephyrian fleet, while secretly gathering intelligence. The aliens seemed confident that humanity would submit rather than face destruction. Their certainty was both encouraging and terrifying. High Counselor Vex Thara contacted the Discovery on the 6th day to check on humanity's decision. Captain Morrison, I trust your species has had sufficient time to consider our generous offer. The collective is eager to welcome humanity into our peaceful community. Jake maintained diplomatic composure, while knowing that Earth's answer was already decided. High Counselor, our leaders are still discussing the implications of membership in your collective. Such an important decision requires careful consideration of all factors involved. Of course, Captain Morrison. However, I should mention that delays in accepting our offer often indicate aggressive tendencies that require correction. The collective has learned to recognize the warning signs of species that may pose future threats to galactic peace. The D's veiled threat was clear, and Jake felt his anger rising at the aliens' arrogance. I understand your position, High Counselor. Humanity will provide our final answer tomorrow as agreed. After the transmission ended, Jake received an encrypted message from Earth containing President Rodriguez's official response. He read it twice to make sure he understood the magnitude of what humanity was choosing to do. They were going to reject the ultimatum and fight for their freedom regardless of the odds. The 7th day arrived, and Jake prepared to deliver humanity's answer to the Zephyrian collective. He stood on the Discovery's bridge surrounded by his crew as they opened a channel to the alien flagship. This moment would determine whether humanity joined the ranks of free civilizations or became another footnote in Zephyrian history. High Counselor Vex Thara appeared on the main screen with that familiar, unsettling smile. Captain Morrison, the moment of decision has arrived. What is humanity's response to our offer of membership in the collective? Jake looked directly into the alien's glowing eyes and spoke with quiet determination. High Counselor Vex Thara, I speak for all humanity when I say that we respectfully decline your offer. We choose to remain free and independent regardless of the consequences. Humanity will not surrender its sovereignty to any power in this galaxy or any other. The smile vanished from Vex Thara's crystalline features and was replaced by cold fury. How disappointing, Captain Morrison. Your species has chosen the path of destruction rather than the wisdom of peace. The collective will now take the necessary steps to protect galactic stability from human aggression. We're not the aggressors here, Jake replied firmly. We came in peace seeking knowledge and friendship. You're the ones demanding submission and threatening destruction. If there's going to be a war, you started it. Vex Thara's eyes blazed with angry light as the transmission ended. Within minutes, long-range sensors detected the Zephyrian fleet moving toward Earth at incredible speed. The aliens were done with diplomacy and ready to demonstrate their power. Jake turned to his crew with determination written on his face. All hands, prepare for quantum tunnel jump to Earth. It's time to go home and stand with our people. Whatever happens next, humanity faces it together. The Discovery's engines engaged and the ship disappeared into the quantum tunnel, racing toward Earth and the battle that would determine humanity's fate. Behind them, 30 Zephyrian warships followed like harbingers of doom, confident in their ability to crush yet another primitive species that had dared to defy their will. But High Counselor Vex Thara and his fleet were about to discover that humans were unlike any species they had encountered before. Humanity's answer to their demand for peace was going to be war, but not the kind of war the Zephyrians expected or understood. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, like gods of war descending from the heavens. 30 massive warships, each the size of a city, arranged themselves in perfect formation as they began their approach toward humanity's homeworld. High Counselor Vex Thara stood on the bridge of his flagship and gazed at the blue-green planet ahead with cold satisfaction. Begin final transmission to the human leadership, Vex Thara commanded. Offer them one last opportunity to surrender before we demonstrate the consequences of defying the collective. On Earth, President Elena Rodriguez stood in the Global Defense Command Center surrounded by military leaders and scientists who had worked frantically to prepare humanity's defenses. Admiral Kevin Hayes coordinated the planet's naval forces while General Nathan Price managed ground-based systems. The planet's entire military might was mobilized for this moment. Madam President, we're receiving a transmission from the lead alien vessel, reported Communications Officer Betty Walsh. They're demanding immediate surrender or they'll begin bombardment of Earth's major population centers. President Rodriguez looked at the assembled leaders around her and saw determination mixed with fear in their faces. Everyone knew the odds they faced, but no one suggested surrender. Open a channel to respond to their ultimatum. The main screen displayed High Counselor Vexithara's imposing figure as he delivered his final demand. People of Earth, you have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally to collective authority. Lay down your weapons, power down your defenses, and prepare to accept guidance toward a peaceful future. Refuse, and your civilization will join the historical records as another example of why aggression cannot be tolerated. President Rodriguez stepped forward and spoke with quiet strength that surprised even herself. High Counselor Vexithara, humanity has already given you our answer. We will not surrender our freedom to you or anyone else. If you want to destroy us, you'll have to do it while we fight back with everything we have. Vexithara's crystalline features showed contempt and disappointment. So be it. The collective will add your species to the memorial we maintain for civilizations too primitive to accept wisdom. Begin the cleansing operation. The transmission ended, and Admiral Hayes immediately activated Operation Defiance, humanity's desperate plan to defend their world against overwhelming odds. The first phase involved something the Zephyrians would never expect from a supposedly primitive species. Instead of massing their fleet for conventional battle, the human ships dispersed throughout the solar system using tactics that seemed to make no strategic sense. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the battlecruiser UES Retribution, led a squadron that appeared to be fleeing toward the outer planets. High Counselor Vexithara watched the human formations with puzzlement. Their fleet deployment makes no tactical sense. Are they attempting to surrender by avoiding engagement? His tactical officer, Sub-Commander Kethaval, studied the human movements with growing confusion. The humans appear to be scattering their forces randomly, High Counselor. Perhaps they are attempting to preserve some ships for evacuation purposes. Irrelevant, Vexithara declared. Begin bombardment of their homeworld. Once they see our power demonstrated, any surviving vessels will surrender quickly enough. The Zephyrian weapons charged with building energy that made space itself seem to vibrate with potential destruction. Massive energy beams lanced out toward Earth's surface, carrying enough power to vaporize entire cities in seconds. The aliens expected to see human shields fail immediately and civilization collapse in terror. Instead, something impossible happened. The Zephyrian energy beams struck Earth's atmosphere and simply disappeared without causing any damage at all. The planet's surface remained untouched while the confused aliens tried to understand what had gone wrong with their weapons. Dr. Lisa Carter, now serving as Earth's chief science advisor, watched the tactical displays with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 successful, Admiral Hayes. Our atmospheric modification is working exactly as predicted. The secret to Earth's defense lay in a discovery made during the analysis of Zephyrian technology. Their weapons were optimized for penetrating advanced energy shields and destroying sophisticated targets. However, they had never been designed to deal with Earth's modified atmosphere that now contained particles specifically engineered to absorb and disperse their energy frequencies. Admiral Hayes activated the second phase of humanity's plan as the Zephyrian fleet moved closer to investigate why their bombardment had failed. All units execute ramming protocol. Show them what human determination looks like. What happened next violated every principle of civilized warfare that the Zephyrians understood. Human ships throughout the solar system suddenly changed course and began accelerating directly toward Zephyrian vessels at maximum speed. The aliens watched in disbelief as enemy vessels deliberately aimed themselves for collision courses. High Counselor, the human ships are attempting direct impact with our vessels, Sub-Commander Kethaval reported in confusion. This makes no tactical sense. They're destroying themselves to inflict minimal damage on our shields. Vexithara stared at the tactical display in bewilderment. In 2,000 years of conquest, no species had ever used suicide attacks. The concept was so foreign to Zephyrian thinking that their computers couldn't even calculate appropriate responses. The first human ship to reach its target was a destroyer commanded by Captain Pete Logan. As his vessel approached the Zephyrian cruiser, Logan transmitted a final message to his crew. "Abandon ship and activate the surprise package. Let's show these aliens what happens when they threaten Earth." The crew evacuated in escape pods while their ship continued its approach, under automated control. Just before impact, Logan's destroyer detonated its cargo of nuclear warheads inside the Zephyrian vessel's shields. The explosion destroyed both ships instantly and sent shockwaves through the alien formation. "Impossible," Vexithara whispered as he watched his cruiser disappear in nuclear fire. No civilized species would sacrifice their own vessels in such a primitive manner. But the human attacks were just beginning. Throughout the solar system, more human ships completed their ramming runs with devastating effect. Each vessel carried maximum nuclear payloads timed to detonate after penetrating Zephyrian shields. The elegant alien energy barriers designed to stop sophisticated weapons were useless against simple nuclear explosions delivered by suicidal courage. Captain Morrison coordinated the attacks from his position near Jupiter, while staying in constant communication with the other human commanders. "Remember, our job is to make them pay for every inch of space. These aliens think they're gods, but we're going to teach them that humans don't bow to anyone." Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Wells led the defense of Earth's orbital stations using tactics that horrified the watching Zephyrians. When alien boarding parties attempted to capture human installations, they found defenders who had rigged everything with explosives. Human soldiers would detonate entire stations rather than allow them to fall into enemy hands. The Zephyrians had expected quick surrender after demonstrating their superior firepower. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to prefer death over defeat. Every engagement cost them ships and personnel as humans used their own deaths as weapons against the invaders. Staff Sergeant Mike Davis commanded a Marine unit aboard one of Earth's defense platforms when Zephyrian troops attempted to board. Instead of conventional resistance, Davis led his squad in hand-to-hand combat using primitive weapons that Zephyrian energy armor couldn't deflect effectively. "Hit them with everything we've got," Davis shouted as his Marines attacked with combat, knives, clubs, and improvised weapons. Their fancy armor stops energy weapons, but a good old-fashioned steel blade still works. The Zephyrian soldiers, accustomed to fighting at long range with energy weapons, were completely unprepared for close-quarters combat. Their training had never included scenarios where enemies would engage in physical combat using primitive weapons. High Counselor Vexithara watched his casualty reports with growing alarm and disbelief. In 6 hours of combat, his supposedly superior fleet had lost 8 warships and thousands of troops to an enemy that should have been helpless before Zephyrian technology. "How is this possible?" he demanded from his tactical staff. "These humans are using primitive weapons and suicidal tactics. How are they inflicting such casualties on our forces?" Sub-Commander Keth Val studied the battle reports with his own confusion evident. "High Counselor, the humans are not fighting according to any recognized tactical doctrine. They seem to prefer destruction over surrender, and they're using methods that our defense systems were never designed to counter." For the first time in 2 millennia, the Zephyrian collective was discovering that superior technology meant nothing when facing an enemy willing to die for freedom. The battle for Earth reached its climax as Admiral Kevin Hayes implemented humanity's final, desperate strategy. Instead of trying to defeat the entire Zephyrian fleet, human forces would focus everything on capturing High Counselor Vexithara's flagship. It was an insane plan that violated every principle of military logic. But then again, humans had been violating Zephyrian expectations since the fighting began. Captain Jake Morrison led the boarding assault aboard the UES Retribution as it approached the massive alien flagship. His ship had taken heavy damage during the battle, but its crew remained determined to complete their mission. Behind him, the remnants of Earth's fleet provided covering fire while Marine units prepared for the most dangerous operation in human military history. "Remember the plan," Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. "We're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to capture their leader and end this war using methods they'll never see coming, the Retribution's hull breach charges." detonated against the Zephyrian flagship's crystal armor, creating an opening large enough for human Marines to enter. Staff Sergeant Mike Davis led the first wave of boarders wearing powered armor that had been specifically designed to counter Zephyrian energy weapons. The aliens defending their ship were completely unprepared for human close-quarters combat tactics. Zephyrian military doctrine had no provisions for enemies who would deliberately engage in hand-to-hand fighting inside spacecraft. Their energy weapons were designed for long-range combat and proved ineffective in the cramped corridors of their own vessel. "Keep moving toward the command center," Davis shouted as his Marines fought their way through the ship's crystal corridors. "Use your kinetic weapons and stay in close formation. Don't give them room to use their energy shields effectively." Corporal. Jenny Stone discovered that human psychological warfare was even more effective than their kinetic weapons. When her squad captured a group of Zephyrian officers, she forced them to broadcast surrender orders to other parts of the ship. The rigid Zephyrian command structure had no protocols for dealing with captured leaders giving contradictory orders. Dr. Lisa Carter, monitoring the assault from Earth's command center, realized that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't their weapons or tactics, but their complete unpredictability. The Zephyrians had spent 2,000 years perfecting strategies against conventional enemies. They had no idea how to fight humans who refused to follow any recognizable patterns. High Counselor Vexithara retreated deeper into his flagship as human forces fought their way toward his location. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before: genuine fear. These primitive humans were systematically destroying everything he had believed about warfare and civilization. "How are they doing this?" Vexithara demanded from his personal guard as explosions echoed through the ship's corridors. "They're using weapons that should be ineffective against our technology. Their tactics make no sense according to any military doctrine." His guard captain, a veteran of dozens of campaigns, could only shake his crystalline head in confusion. "High Counselor, these humans fight like they have nothing to lose. They seem to prefer death over surrender, and they're using their own sacrifice as a weapon against us." The breakthrough came when Captain Morrison's team reached the flagship's main power core. Instead of trying to destroy it, they implemented a plan that Dr. Carter had developed based on her analysis of Zephyrian technology. Amy Torres used her engineering skills to reprogram the alien systems in ways their designers had never imagined possible. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also completely standardized," Torres explained as she worked. "Every Zephyrian ship uses the same basic systems, and they've never had to deal with sabotage from the inside. I can turn their own power grid against them." Within minutes, Torres had caused a cascade failure that disabled the flagship's primary systems while leaving life support intact. The Zephyrian crew found themselves trapped aboard their own vessel as human forces methodically captured each section. High Counselor Vexithara's final stand took place in his command chamber, surrounded by his most loyal guards. When human Marines breached the entrance, they found the aliens waiting with energy weapons charged and ready. But instead of the frontal assault they expected, the humans did something that broke every rule of civilized warfare. Staff Sergeant Davis held up a captured Zephyrian officer and spoke directly to Vexithara. "High Counselor, you have 30 seconds to surrender, or we start executing your people one by one. We're not playing by your rules anymore." The threat of deliberate execution of prisoners was so alien to Zephyrian thinking that Vexithara couldn't even process it initially. In 2 millennia of conquest, the collective had never encountered enemies who would threaten helpless captives. Their entire concept of honorable warfare made such tactics unthinkable. "You cannot be serious," Vexithara said in disbelief. "No, civilized species would harm prisoners of war. This violates every principle of conduct between intelligent beings." Davis looked at the alien leader with cold determination. "You came here to exterminate our entire species. You've murdered 47 different civilizations. Don't talk to us about civilized conduct when you're nothing but a genocidal monster in fancy armor." Faced with the possibility of watching his subordinates die for his pride, High Counselor Vexithara made the only choice available to him. For the first time in collective history, a Zephyrian leader surrendered to inferior opponents. "I yield," Vexithera said quietly, his crystalline features reflecting defeat and confusion. "Spare my people and I will order the fleet to withdraw." The surrender of the Zephyrian flagship sent shockwaves through the alien fleet that had never experienced defeat before. Without their High Counselor's leadership and faced with human tactics they couldn't understand or counter, the surviving Zephyrian ships began retreating toward the edge of the solar system. But the victory over the Zephyrians was just the beginning of a larger change that would reshape the entire galaxy. News of humanity's impossible triumph spread through hidden communication networks maintained by conquered species throughout collective space. For the first time in 2,000 years, subject races began to believe that resistance was possible. Commander Alex Turner, now serving as Earth's liaison to liberated species, received the first contact from the Kethmori rebellion within weeks of the battle. The warrior race that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians 3 centuries earlier was preparing to fight for their freedom, and they wanted human tactical assistance. Commander Turner, the Kethmori leader, transmitted from his hidden base, "We have heard of your victory over the collective forces. Our people wish to learn these human methods of warfare that defeated our oppressors." Turner smiled as he prepared humanity's response. Earth was about to become the center of a galactic liberation movement that would free dozens of enslaved species from Zephyrian rule. The aliens had demanded peace through submission, but humans had shown them something far more powerful: the willingness to fight and die for freedom. Dr. Carter established a research facility dedicated to studying captured Zephyrian technology and sharing it with newly liberated species. The aliens' rigid, standardized systems were easily adapted once their weaknesses were understood. Within months, former collective subjects were building weapons and defenses based on human innovations. High Counselor Vexithara, now imprisoned, but treated according to human standards of prisoner rights, served as an unwilling source of intelligence about collective operations. His interrogations revealed the locations of other enslaved species and the deployment of remaining Zephyrian forces. President Elena Rodriguez addressed the newly formed Galactic Liberation Alliance from Earth's capital as representatives from Mindar. 6 different species gathered to coordinate their freedom campaigns. The Zephyrians had created their empire by convincing species that resistance was hopeless. Humanity had proven that determination and unconventional thinking could overcome any technological advantage. "They asked for peace," Rodriguez said to the assembled alien leaders, "and we showed them war. But more importantly, we showed them that freedom is worth any price, and that no civilization has the right to enslave another." Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation as it led a mixed fleet of human and alien vessels towards Zephyrian space. The ship carried volunteers from 8 different species, all united by their desire to liberate their homeworlds from collective rule. The galaxy would never be the same. The Zephyrian collective, once seemingly invincible, now faced rebellions on dozens of worlds as their former subjects applied human tactics against their oppressors. The age of peaceful submission was ending, replaced by an era where freedom. Fighters across the galaxy looked to humanity for inspiration and support. The humans had answered the Zephyrian demand for peace with war, but they had also given the galaxy something far more valuable: hope.